وتبدد الجو القاتم، وانتصر العقل والتعقل، انتصرت الحكمة والحسم، وانتصر القرار. نتحدث إليكم الآن من العاصمة البريطانية لندن، التي قابلت بارتياح شديد نهاية محنة الطائرة الكويتية التي خطفت. نتابع معكم الجولة في لندن، نلتقي بمجموعة من المفكرين والسياسيين والإعلاميين، نستمع إلى آرائهم وإلى انطباعاتهم في الأسلوب الذي عالجت به السلطات الكويتية هذه القضية منذ البداية وحتى النهاية. بالأمس كنا في واشنطن، اليوم في لندن، مع مزيد من الآراء تحت عنوان شهادات عالمية في مواقف الكويت. الموقف المتشدد الذي اتخذته الحكومة الكويتية من عملية الاختطاف يتوافق مع ما كان دائما يدعو إليه كافة المسؤولين السياسيين في بريطانيا. تحدثنا إلى زعيم حزب الأحرار ديفيد ستيل.
I believe most people in Britain fully support the Kuwaiti stance of no compromise, because we have to accept that every civilized country is under threat from terrorist blackmail of this kind, and if any one of us gives in, then the rest are all weakened. So I think we are fully supportive of the Kuwaiti position. I think most people believe that it's being handled correctly, that the international community has to stand firm against such piracy, and I think we have a great deal of sympathy for the Kuwaiti people at this time. Once any country starts to give in to these demands, then it would never be possible to take court action against any terrorist criminals at all, because every time they were imprisoned, there would be actions of this kind. So the only refuge for all civilized people is to stand very firm against this kind of blackmail. None of us knows what precisely are the interconnections between the different terrorist groups, but I don't think we can allow that to alter our steadfast support for the stand the Kuwaitis have taken. I think we have to treat each individual incident on its merits, and I think we just simply have to give them full support for what they're doing at the moment.
ديفيد ليرمونت بصفته خبيرا متخصصا في الكتابة في عالم الطيران تابع باهتمام عملية الخطف. ماذا يقول؟
As a former transport pilot myself who has operated a great deal in the Middle East, I feel very close to the people who are on the aeroplane. I feel very strongly about their predicament. And although I, because of my operations there, may feel extremely close to these people and extremely close to the Kuwaitis in their current trial, I can tell you also that all of the British press contingent feels very, very strongly about this situation and admires the Kuwaitis tremendously for their steadfastness and the way that they're carrying out this operation at the moment. It must be tremendously difficult, I think we all realize, with the pressures from international sources for the Kuwaitis to make some concessions, for the Kuwaitis to have managed to maintain such stolidness. As a former military man myself, I have always believed that it would have been stupid to have had a storming of this airplane, because this airplane has had a highly professional group of people on board, I regret to say, and also a very much larger and better armed group than has ever been on board a hijacked aircraft so far in the history of hijacks. And I think that all the well-briefed military units of the world who would have had a capability of carrying out such a storming, all these units have realized that such a storming would 98% chance result in carnage.
هذا يقودنا في الواقع للحديث عن اهتمام أجهزة الإعلام البريطانية بهذا الحادث، وكيف تولت هذه الأجهزة التعامل مع هذا الموضوع بصورة خاصة الصحف، وبصورة أخص أجهزة التلفزيون. بعض النماذج ولو الخاطفة عن التغطية التلفزيونية لحادث اختطاف الطائرة الكويتية في التلفزيون البريطاني. تريفر ماكدونالد صحفي مذيع ومعروف لنشرة أخبار التلفزيون البريطاني المستقل، يلخص لنا ردات الفعل حول عملية الاختطاف.
Well, the Kuwaiti stance, I think, has evoked a lot of sympathy in this country. The Kuwaitis have had 17 people in prison who they have deemed, according to their laws and according to the process which is involved in carrying out those laws, that these people are guilty of various offences. They have these people in prison and they have decided that they are there quite lawfully and quite legally, and that no demand by the hijackers is worth going back, contravening that basic and fundamental principle. And so I think there's been a great deal of understanding about the Kuwaitis' position in this regard, and I would go even further to say that I think that there have been expressions of great support for the Kuwaiti stand, not only from Mrs. Thatcher, but from countries in Western Europe, and certainly from President Reagan, who has waged a campaign against this kind of terrorism. So I think the Kuwaiti stand would be very much applauded, quite generally, by countries in Western Europe. It certainly is in this country by Mrs. Thatcher. But very early on, the Kuwaitis made what seemed to be a very cast-iron principle. They said that come what may, they were not about to give in to the men who hijacked this plane. Now this in view of the fact, one must consider that apparently, and I'm not too sure how close these people are, but there are 3 members of the Kuwaiti royal family on this plane. And the Kuwaitis said, and people from the Kuwaiti embassy in London said to me here, look, regardless of who was on that plane, our principle is as you understand it and as we have stated it and as we have enunciated it time and time again. We will not treat with hijackers. So if one begins to feel that some element of sympathy crept in to any kind of government statement or any kind of media treatment about how the Kuwaitis handled it, I think it can be attributed to that fact, the underlining of a very clear, apparently irreducible principle to which the Kuwaitis are apparently quite firmly attached. You can't give in to hijackers, the government say. If you do, if you try to deal with them, all you do is that you encourage other people to do the same. I think that in this case there's been the added complication of some sort of connection possibly with the hostages which this country and which France and which some other European countries have in Lebanon. But even so, it's been interesting that despite these domestic considerations in countries, the stand has still been firm, and the Kuwaiti stand has been applauded, respected, and fully understood, I would say.
كان موقف الحكومة البريطانية واضحا طوال فترة عملية الاختطاف، وهذا الموقف مؤيد تماما للموقف المتشدد الذي اتخذته السلطات الكويتية.
Well, I think the British government has taken a very low profile on the question, but understandably so in view of the fact that there are British hostages still held in different parts of the Middle East. But they have been, I think, very supportive of the Kuwaiti government.
British position on this hijack, I think, is remarkably sympathetic to the Kuwaiti position. The British believe that if success is seen to come from air piracy, or if any glory of any kind is seen to come from air piracy, then there will be more of it. And this must be brought to an end with minimal and ideally no concessions.
I think the British response to the hijacking